Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And for about a week, we're going to be doing Valentine's recommendations. And we actually have two viewer requests for this one. It is the 2009 film, The Proposal. Here is your trivia question for today. Oscar Nunez's Ramon had many jobs in the film. Of those jobs, which one did the island only have one of? The answer will be at the end of this episode. So, at the beginning of our film, we meet our main characters Margaret Tate, who happens to be an executive editor in chief at a New York City publishing company. Margaret is very work driven, but at the same time is not favored by most of her staff. We also meet Andrew Paxton, who happens to be Margaret's personal assistant, but has high hopes of one day becoming an editor himself. Margaret ends up having a meeting with her boss and finds out that her visa unfortunately is about to be denied and she is going to get deported back to Canada. Margaret quickly comes up with a solution and notifies her boss that she and her assistant Andrew are actually lovers and in fact are engaged and are going to be married. This is of course news to Andrew, but ends up willing to go along with it as he might get something out of the situation. Now, it's not going to be as easy as just telling people that they're going to get married, as there is an agent Gilbertson from immigration who wants proof. So now Margaret and Andrew are heading to Sitka, Alaska, which happens to be the hometown of Andrew. It's here that his Grammy is celebrating her 90th birthday party, and it gives him an opportunity to tell his parents that they're engaged. So, will this go the route of most rom coms, where both of these people who don't really care much about each other end up loving each other in the end? Or will they both realize that this is just business, and they will both get something out of this if they just go with the plan? This movie was directed by Anne Fletcher. The movie takes place in Alaska, but was primarily filmed in Boston, Massachusetts. If you weren't aware, there is a little bit of role reversal in this movie, as Sandra Bullock's character of Margaret Tate is Canadian, while Ryan Reynolds' character of Andrew Paxton is from America. Now, in actuality, Ryan Reynolds is from Canada, and Sandra Bullock is an American citizen. This film is not actually the first time that Sandra Bullock has played a character that interrupts her own wedding. In fact, the first time that she did it was in the movie While You Were Sleeping. Sandra Bullock as Margaret, in my opinion, was great casting. Although, did you happen to know that the character was originally offered to Julia Roberts? She turned it down, though, as she was unwilling to take a pay cut for the role. Something you may or may not have noticed throughout the film is while Margaret starts to change to a friendlier, nicer person, her hair changes as well. It goes from being pulled back and restrained to being free and almost looking softer. Betty White almost turned down the role of Grammy due to the fact that filming would have caused her to spend 10 weeks away from her golden retriever. Speaking of dogs, Kevin, the American Eskimo puppy that appears in the film, was actually played by four puppies. They were named Flurry, Sitka, Nanu, and Winter. In the original script, there was an idea involving Agent Gilbertson that I wish they would have kept in. The idea was at one point in the past, he'd actually sent a copy of his book to Margaret, and she sent back a very humiliating denial. And so this would have given a much better reason as to why he's so dead set on getting her deported. Did you happen to notice in Agent Gilbertson's office on his desk, he actually has a copy of U.S. Citizenship for Dummies? The red number 27 buoy that appears in the movie is more than likely a fabrication. The reason for this is in real life, all of the green buoys have odd numbers, while the red buoys have even numbers. So apparently there was originally plans for a sequel, but that got scrapped when Touchstone was downsized by Disney. Although I'll be honest, I'm not sure how you could do a sequel to this movie, or at least I'm not sure how you could do a good one. So when it comes to the film The Proposal, I do like this movie. It's not one of my favorite rom-coms, but I do really enjoy it. Both Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock do a great job. It's not one of my favorite Betty White movies, but she still does a good job in it. I think one of my biggest issues is I just don't feel it's a very strong story, so I think I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5. Now, if you really did enjoy it, some other movies I would recommend checking out are How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, While You Were Sleeping, Overboard, and Pretty Woman. Now, as for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode, Oscar Nunez's Ramon had many jobs in the film. Of those jobs, which one did the island only have one of? Ramon was a very busy man who wore a lot of hats, including catering, running the local general store, being a minister, and of course, he was the island of Sitka's only exotic dancer. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews, and if there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.